Hello, everyone. It is Marc Sabatella here from Mastering MuseScore. Welcome to the Music Masterclass. And this is, kind of the first session of the cohort for our basic music theory session. And so we're going to be focusing for, the next couple months here on the material that we're working on in the course. So I'm here to answer questions that anyone has about any of the material, about the projects, take a look at some of the work we've done in the projects. And, I've got some of my own things to talk about as well. So let's, because this is sort of a slightly different format that we're doing here, let's put in some ground rules here, not rules, but this is what I would say kind of going to be a more open-ended, like question and answer kind of session, because I want to make sure that I am addressing your questions. So by all means, be free to ask questions on the material in here. What I'm going to recommend you do is when you're entering into the chat, go ahead and use the little emoji thing here. And let me just get I have my pinned version of the chat here. Go ahead and, find the little question mark icon. I guess I need to actually close this so you can see it. If you search for the question mark icon, and, feel free to put a couple of them in there or whatever, just so that, it helps me see that there was a question in case I miss it. So that's something I will suggest. And by all means, if y'all have other ideas on how to make this go smoothly, I'm always open to your suggestions. So, I want to definitely be taking any questions anyone has on the material. I do have a few things. I made a few notes to myself of things I wanted to make sure I discussed. And one of them I'm going to put out here during the live session, but I need to always be cognizant of the fact that not everyone who's engaging here is engaging live, right? I mean, there's over 100 people in the course, but not everyone can attend these sessions live. So that there's going to be a lot of people who might only be watching the session later. So I want to make sure I get, equal input from people. But what I'm wondering about is the idea of doing little subgroups. This is something that's come up in the community and discussing the idea of doing little subgroups to discuss particular areas, people who want to get together on their own. And we have the facility for that. In the community, we have the study hall space, and I showed that in the tour. And if we kind of come up with organized times and say, hey, let's plan on letting people use this room at this time for this purpose, I don't need a whole formal reservation system, but put your thinking caps on and see if any ideas come up here in the chat, and then maybe we can continue the discussion offline in the community as well. So that's something I want to be thinking about, is how we can be encouraging, offline conversations between people here and get-togethers. Another thing, okay, so that's actually the main thing that I want to talk about. Actually, that any emoji, frankly, any emoji at the beginning of a question is going to stand out. So, it could be anything. It could be sticking your tongue out at me. I really don't care. And anything that's graphical, I'm going to say, hey, what is that? So by all means. But on the other hand, maybe don't use so many emojis otherwise, especially not at the beginning of questions or beginning of statements. Maybe that's a thing. Okay. So I want to make another kind of general observation, and I want to get you, everyone who's here right now can respond to this in the chat. So the thing that I'm always aware of in working with people, especially in a course like this, is that some people, sort of based on your background and experience, are maybe more naturally ear people. In other words, you do music by ear mostly, and maybe the whole idea of notating it is what's new and scary. For other people, your experience has been through notated music, reading music, and the idea of using your ear is the thing that's a little new and scary. So I want to hear from everyone who's here in the chat, everyone who's here and can get to a keyboard to type. Let me know. Do you think of yourself as primarily an ear person when it comes to music, or primarily a notation person when it comes to music? Or do you feel you're fairly equally comfortable either way? That would be an interesting thing also. So I just want to hear from everyone on this. While I wait, because I know the chat's always 10 seconds or so behind what I'm saying, my goal here is to get everyone into that third category of equally comfortable either way. This is because, to me, either side of that equation without the other, something is missing. You can improve your ability to compose and read music if you have the ear thing going with you, and you can improve your ability to deal with things by ear if you've got the theory and notation side going on. And so anyhow, I feel like the two play into each other well. And so what I'm going to be doing is trying to bridge the gap as much as possible in here. So great. I'm glad to see some of the responses here, and it's so far, kind of nicely split between these here. So what I've written all sorts of notes to myself about things. What I'm going to do here is again. Any questions at all, feel free to ask at any time, and just use a little emoji or something at the beginning of your question to help it stand out so I see it scrolling by. What I want to do is start by talking about the project, and in particular, my demonstration here. So I did this demonstration Tuesday? Was it Tuesday I did it? Yeah, I think so. I think it was Tuesday. I haven't looked at it since. I've only thought about it a little. And the first thing that I want to talk about here is, do I remember it? Because the answer is no, I don't remember it. But I remember part of it. And I want to talk about what I remember, what I don't remember, and what this tells me about my understanding. All right? So first of all, y'all can help me with the lyrics, maybe. It was the Shakespeare take those lips away. And if someone wants to do a quick little search and put the lyrics in the chat or something, feel free. For other people, because I want to, actually I could just do that, but I'm not going to. So I remember it started on a D. I remember that. And I remember it started that line, take those lips away. One thing you may have noticed if you went through my demonstration, I don't know how well you can see this, my scribbles here. I do actually have I did make a scan of it, and I'll post it later. I notated it in treble clef. Y'all see that? Can you see that that's a scribbled treble clef there? I notated it an octave higher than I'm singing it. There's a couple different things that I want to talk about that before I even try to go through the melody, because I want to talk about the whole octave business, because questions have come up about octave naming and the numbering system for octaves. To a great extent, most cultures hear octaves as being essentially the same. In other words, if you sing a D and someone else sings a D in another octave, we recognize it as the same pitch at some level, most people. This has been proven to be mostly true, although, they've done studies on, tribes that have relatively little contact with Western civilization. And in some of those, they don't make that octave association because their own music doesn't work that way. But so for the most part, when we're writing a melody, we're going to assume it could be sung in any octave because, on average, male voices are an octave lower than female voices, right? That's just the way it is. But also, when we're writing for male voice, when we're writing for tenors in particular, it's very common to write on treble clef, but assume it's actually sounding an octave lower. In other words, if you are writing for tenor voice, you might write, and let me just go ahead and create a new score here. You might write what looks like middle C, that one ledger line below the staff, and a tenor is going to sing it as another C lower than that. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself a grand staff just in case I need both of them. So yeah, when you're writing for tenor voice, if you write this C here for tenor voice, tenors will sing that an octave lower. Now, tenors also read bass clef, so octaves are a subjective thing, I guess I would say. There is a special clef in MuseScore. If you go to the palettes and where it says clefs, you'll see this 8 below the clef. That is the clef that causes MuseScore to, let me actually select the clef and apply that. This is what causes MuseScore to play that C an octave lower than what it appears. So that's what I've written here. I've written treble clef with an 8 below. I just didn't write in the 8 below. All right. That aside, so yeah, there's going to be lots of little random things like this that I'm going to be letting you know about in this course. So I remember the start. And I don't know how many of you watched my demonstration, but you all can like try to remember along with me. Take those lips away. Now here's where I wish I remembered the lyrics. Da 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 da. So I don't remember the lyrics there, and that's my problem here. So I'm gonna have to read my lyrics and try to ignore my notes. Take those lips away that so sweetly were forsworn. That whole line, that so sweetly were forsworn, there's one word in that line that I actually remembered, and that was the word sweetly. And the reason I remembered it is because I remembered that's where the pitch went down. That so sweetly, I remembered that. Let's hold on to that thought. And those eyes, the break of day. And see, now I can see my notes. I don't want to see my notes. I just want to see my lyrics. And then lights that do mislead the morn. I remember that. The morn. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Helen. So I don't remember the melody there exactly. I remember the basic shape, but I remember the morn. Let's hold on to that. And then I remember I jumped up an octave. But my kisses bring again, bring again. I remember that because I remember reusing that bit of melody that I had before. Then seals of love, but sealed in vain. Sealed in vain. I remember that enclosure figure, a step above and then a step below, and then the final D. So that's what I remember. I would say I remember about 70 to 80% of that melody, and the lyrics helped. So thank you. So now I'm going to try it again. Take those lips away that so sweetly were forsworn, and those eyes, the break of day. Lights that do mislead. Now, see, I'm just guessing at lights that do mislead. That's the part I don't remember. I'm going to have to cheat. Lights that do mislead. Lights. There it is. Lights. Okay, now, see, I didn't remember that. Now I'm having to look at my music. And those eyes, the break of day. Lights goes back up to a G. Lights that do mislead the morn. But my kisses bring again, seals of love, but sealed in vain, sealed in vain. All right, good. Got my melody back. So here's one of the things that I'm going to make an observation about this process of memory. The ability to remember a melody. Not even just a melody, but to a piece of music, to memorize things. I don't even like the word memorize. The ability to remember things is so wrapped up in our ability to understand things that these things are really indelibly connected. As a really rough approximation, and I don't like to overgeneralize, but I do it anyhow. Generally speaking, good musicians have good memories for music. You might forget where you put your car keys. That's me. But music tends to stick. And this is, I've made this observation before with respect to numbers. If I give you a number sequence like 6, 2, 4, 5, 3, 1, 7, did I get everything in there? See, I don't even know. I already forgot it. Y'all remember that sequence? Can you repeat that sequence back to me? Yeah, I'll give you a moment to try to remember that. 6, I started with 6 to, did I say 4 in there? Did I ever get a 3 in there? I don't even remember. See, that's the thing is I don't remember. It's just a random number sequence. How about this sequence, though? So I will have you try to put that in. By all means, try to type that in if you can remember. Bob, 6, 2, 5, 4. I kind of feel like I went to the 4 before the 5. Susan's is more likely to be what I did. That sounds, yeah, we've got a few different versions of it that are all in the same ballpark. I think Susan's got it, but I can't say for sure. All right. How about if I give you this sequence? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? That one's easy. Right? How about this one? 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6. That one might take you a moment, but as soon as you get the pattern, oh, he did all the odd numbers, then he did the even numbers, right? If you can see the pattern, your memory is much better. So a lot of what happens in music theory is teaching us to understand patterns. And these patterns will help our memory. And then it's one less thing to think about when you're playing or singing, right? You don't want to have to remember what is that next note. You just want to kind of know it because it's obvious because it fits the pattern, right? I mentioned Tuesday. Did I mention Tuesday? I don't remember mentioning Tuesday. Oh, Tuesday is when I recorded my demo. So if you go to the cohort space and see, in fact, if you go to the cohort space, let me just flip over there real quick because why not? Where did I put the dang thing? Is it in here? All right, just open a new window. If you go to the cohort space, you will see where I posted my demonstration, and I recorded that demonstration on Tuesday. There was no live event associated with it, but I recorded it and posted it on Tuesday. And so that's how long I've had to forget my own song. So right here, demonstration, take those lips away. So hopefully, oh, here's another thing. Hopefully everyone got a message from me last night. There's a new feature in Circle that lets me send bulk messages so that I can message everyone in the course at once. And I message everyone in the course to make sure you saw that there's now a welcome video and a tour video. The welcome video and the tour video kind of walk you through the different spaces. Oh, that's the Mastering MuseScore course. Here's basic music theory here. And so this is the cohort space, and this is where that demonstration is. This is where the project is, and my demonstration is basically me going through that project. So this is where I'm encouraging you to hang out now, is to go to this space, and this is where you can make posts. And there's also the chat space, which is more kind of just open-ended, instead of individual posts with titles and responses, the chat space is just kind of a long-running thread. So this is where I want you to be interacting with the course. All right. So the thing about the cohort space is the space that is cohort discussion projects. That's where this stuff is. So that melody, as I was writing it, I was sort of talking through in the demonstration about my process and what the patterns were, what were the things that I was doing with it. And those are the things that kind of stuck in my head, like the fact that I had that leap down. I don't think I talked much about that leap down from the E to the A, but in my brain, I'm thinking, oh, that's an interesting little leap. I did this big leap down, and it wasn't to D. It wasn't to my final note. It was to A. I thought about that. I said, hey, that's kind of interesting. And it sort of filed away in the back of my brain. And so I had no trouble remembering that happened. But some of the other details of the melody just didn't stick. All the places where it's just moving by step, and I forget where it changes direction sometimes. So, long-term versus short-term memory is another aspect of this. it is definitely true that you can memorize things by repeating them often enough and commit them to long-term memory. And I can memorize long sequences of numbers pretty well. I still remember from childhood, we just had Pi Day the other day, right? 3.14159 2 something. That's as much as I can remember. I'm not even sure about the 2, but 3.1416 or 3.14159. I'm positive about that, right? And it's not because I understand what pi is, but I don't understand that sequence of digits. It's just a memorization thing. Memorization is possible without understanding. I can memorize a poem written in French without understanding a word of it. But that's different from understanding. So, we definitely want to have the understanding going on. So we want to work these skills together. So all of that said, what I want to do now is a number of you have done versions of this here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to play a couple of them. Some of you have posted your own versions of this with you singing or playing or both. And I'm just going to run through them. And there's not really rules to how this was put together, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and play a couple of these. And I want you to listen to them and try to remember them. And then we're going to try to sing them back. And we're going to talk about that process, all right?
Winter 6 months long.
Winter 6 months long. I'm not going to be able to remember 25 seconds worth at once. So I'm going to stop at one phrase at a time. All right. And we're going to sing them back. So if you're watching live, by all means, sing. It doesn't matter if you're watching live or not. You're going to, I want you to sing along and repeat them back after me. And then we'll see what we can say about them afterwards.
Winter 6 months long.
Winter 6 months long. Did I sing that right? Y'all try it? I'm just going to go on, and then you can then we can decide if I actually sang something wrong, because there's something about that leap pattern that I feel like maybe I didn't have quite right.
Comes the spring at last.
Comes the spring at last. Does that sound right to you? I think it might be. Let's come back.
Comes the spring at last.
Comes the spring at last. Y'all sing it with there? All right, let's hear the next phrase.
Summer solstice here too soon.
Summer solstice here too soon. Yeah, did I get that right? I feel like I'm trying to do too many things at once and may have missed those last few notes. Let's try that again.
Summer solstice here too soon.
I think I had that right.
Summer solstice here too soon.
Summer solstice here too soon. I'm just using my hands to kind of indicate the pitch level. Those of you who work through some of the ear training exercises I did a few months ago, you might remember we talked about solfege syllables, and we're going to return to that when we start talking about the major scale. But I want to not deal with syllables right now. Let's go ahead and hear the last phrase.
Shorter days ahead.
Shorter days ahead. No, is that right? Yeah. See, only hearing it once might not be good enough for me.
Shorter days ahead.
Days ahead. I tried to do the leap down again, and it wasn't a leap down. Shorter days ahead. You all sing that now? Okay. So, Let's try to sing the whole thing. I'm going to play the whole thing again, and then we're going to sing the whole thing. All right?
Winter 6 months long, comes the spring at last. Summer solstice here too soon, shorter days ahead.
Beautiful. All right, let's try it. I'm going to sing it. I'm going to sing it off mic, and I'm going to kind of count it in. It's out of time, so we're just going to kind of do one word at a time. He's got a click track going, which is nice, but I want you to try to sing it. So winter. So there's how it's going to start. Winter. We know kind of what the rhythm is, and I just want us all to kind of sing together. Obviously, we're not going to hear each other, and it wouldn't be synchronized if I did try to bring people on the call. The point is, I just want to get people trying your memory, and I'm deliberately messing with your memory here, right? By delaying when you get to start. That's just life. Here we go. Winter 6 months long, comes the spring at last. Summer solstice here too soon, shorter days ahead. Oh, are you supposed to remember the words? Well, can you not see them? Am I not doing the share screen thing? I would think that you could see those words. You should be able to see the words if you're looking at the screen. If you're not looking at the screen, then you can't see them. Let me make sure I'm logged in on my other system here. Give me a sec. So the lyrics are there on the screen. Yeah, they seem to be. So, well, that's curious. Maybe they are. Maybe is it dim? Are you seeing a dimmed screen, or are you seeing the screen full? Because it's dim. It's dim for me. Hello? I think that's just, I don't know. If it looks good, great. Then it's just because I've got 2 accounts logged in at once, it's dimming it. I'm not going to worry about it then. All right, thanks for the confirmation. So, how did y'all feel like you did? Fine, but a little blurry, fuzzy. Oh, that's good to know that it's fuzzy. That's interesting. I wouldn't expect that it to be fuzzy. Yeah, it should be good quality, but well, I can't really control that, so I'm not going to worry about it. And it doesn't matter that much because it's not about, the words are there as a reminder, but we should be able to remember that. Let's sing the thing one more time. Okay, here we go. Let's sing it. Winter 6 months long, comes the spring at last. Summer solstice here too soon, shorter days ahead. All right, I'm going off of my memory there, but now I feel like I've now kind of cemented in my mind how I think it goes. The question is, am I even right? I want to sing it along.
Winter 6 months long, comes the spring at last. Summer solstice here too soon, shorter days ahead.
All right, so beautiful. This is a excellent demonstration of the techniques. So now I want to pull out an aid, a visual aid. Some of you have seen this before. I think I pulled it out briefly during the demonstration or talking about the project. I've just posted in the chat a link to where you can get your own one of these, this piano keyboard ear training thing at the top of the chat. If you click that, you'll see a PDF that you can print, I got mine laminated because these are cool. And what it is it's just a keyboard, doesn't make any noise, but now we can start talking about this association between what we're singing and where the notes are here without the distraction of hearing the keyboard actually play it for you. So you can do this by fingering. If you're a saxophone player, finger on the saxophone without blowing air through the horn, right? Or just lightly touch the guitar strings without really plucking them. There's all sorts of ways you can kind of simulate this if keyboard isn't like a comfortable thing for you. But here's the other thing. When it comes to basic music theory and the sort of skills that we're trying to develop, I would like everyone to have a basic familiarity with the keyboard, whether it's your main instrument or not, whether you're ever going to really play it or not. I really need you to be able to have some basic familiarity with the keyboard. In fact, like the college course where I would teach this material, the ear training portion would be divided into 3 sections. Every session we would spend equal time on pitch, rhythm, and keyboard skills, and we would deliberately work on each of those things. So yeah, Bob, I haven't talked about how this is going to work, but here's what I'm going to do. I know it started on a D. How do I know it started on a D? I don't have perfect pitch, and I just hope it did because, you know, that's we're trying to use the white keys. So I'm going to assume he followed the rules and it was all white keys and it kind of ended on D. And it started on D. So I know that. Now I'm going to try to do this. Bum, 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 bum. So the question is, bum, how far did that next note go down? The winter, is it going down to C? Is it going down to B? Is it going down to A? Is it going down to G? What is that note? Bum, bum. It happens to be A. This relationship, bum, 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 that sound. Think about what that sounds like in your voice to sing winter, winter. Think about that sound. Bum, 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 bum. This is a fundamental, I changed it to major just to make this point, that this relationship between that D and the A is fundamental to Western music. That relationship from a note to the note, basically what's called a fourth below. We're going to talk about intervals, you know, later on, or a fifth above. And that is one reason why I picked this particular scale as the place that we're going to be working on for this exercise, because the extremes of this scale relate to that final in this really primal sort of way. There's actual physical acoustic reason for it. The ratio of these frequencies is 2 to 3 or 3 to 2, depending on which order you go in. And it's that's 3 to 2. So this is 3 to 4, I think, or 4 to 3, whatever. It's small number ratios. This ratio here, this relationship between the D and the A, is hugely important to how music came to be the way it is. So I want you to have that association and know, even if you don't know how to find it everywhere on the keyboard yet, you know, that's fine if you don't know that. When we talk about intervals, you'll learn how to find perfect fourths and perfect fifths everywhere. And even when we learn major scales, you'll get a pretty good idea of that. And, you know, so if you already know your scales and you already know your intervals, great. But if you don't, just with this set of pitches, just know what that sound is. That sound, that relationship between the D and the A. So, winter, 6. The way I handle those leaps, so is bum, and then a big leap down, and then a big leap down, and then a big leap. I mean, a note, leap down, leap up, leap down, leap up. So those are all big leaps, and I don't know necessarily how big they all are. But let's kind of suss this out here. Winter, 6. If it was just coming back to 6, winter 6 would be here, but that's not what it was, right? It was winter 6. So let's try win straight to 6. I'm gonna cheat the ter. Win 6, went 6, went 6, long. If you skip the bottom note and just sing win 6, long, it's a little easier to tell that the notes are moving by step, right? If you skip that bottom note and just sing win 6, long, and just kind of cheat that, that you can tell the difference between steps and leaps a little easier. And that's another thing that, again, if it's not like already super comfortable for you, this is why we're doing this. I want you to get good at telling the difference between steps and leaps. And yeah, so that I'm not holding up the thing well. So you'll have to so I'll use this. Now that you've seen that this exists, now I'll use this guy, right? Winter 6 months long. And now comes the, and I have to think how much higher is the than comes. And when in doubt, I'm going to walk there. Comes, there it is, it's that high. Comes the spring is the step down, and then at is somewhere down here. I don't know where that is yet. Comes the spring, last. Comes the spring at last. I can tell that last is a step above spring. I still don't know where at is, but I can relate spring to last. This stuff that I'm talking about, these are tricks that we can use to help us figuring out the pitches of what we're doing here, because I want to know what those notes are. I want to be able to play them on the keyboard. I started on F. Winter 6 months long, comes the spring at. Now I'm going to try to figure out where at is. Can you all remember where D is? I'm singing at, and now I want you all to sing a D. At D, right? How do you know where D is? Because it's where we started. It's where we've been centering. I want you to have that kind of pitch memory. I want you to be able to remember the pitch we started with, the pitch we're going to keep coming back to. Winter 6 months long, comes the spring at, and now you're going to sing a D. D. So if at is there, D is here, at is a step above it. So I now know that that was an E. Comes the spring at last. And then we have this little pattern. It goes, summer solstice here. That pattern, can you recognize that as kind of a stair-steppy pattern? That's how I would describe it. Da, 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 dum. That's like a pattern that you want to kind of get into your brain because it's pretty common. Da, 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 dum. You know, you could go all day long doing that pattern. The summer solstice here, and then the real melody goes up a step and then back down to soon. And then it goes, what is the next note? Sure. What note is that? What note is sure? Let's sing the D again. D, sure. It's a D. Shorter days. It starts off just like Winter 6 months long did. Shorter days. And then remember the mistake I made? I tried to sing it just like the original melody. Shorter days. I tried to sing that, but it isn't. He does that enclosure thing. Shorter days ahead. Shorter days ahead. So I'm still, every time I'm looking at the screen over here, it's so weird to me because it is showing me something very different than what I think I should be seeing. And so I am a little concerned. I'm going to try something here just to see if it helps anything, because I'm I have some questions about what's going on here. So give me a moment here. I'm going to hit stop sharing. Now I'm going to share again by saying Window, Visual Piano Studio, Share. And come back to my Visual Piano Studio. And in here, Stop Capture, Start Capture, entire screen. Yeah, it's still gray on my screen, but I guess we'll find out, about the blurriness and possibly being dim. We'll find out. So, yeah, everyone's going to have different things that work for you tool-wise. But these are the connections that I want us to be making. The connections between the sounds that we're making and the notes that produce those sounds. And there's a lot you can learn without getting really specific about the language of intervals. Like I did mention the idea of a fifth and a fourth, but I didn't dwell on that. I talked about this primal relationship between A and D, and eventually we'll learn how to translate that other keys. But mostly other than that, I was talking about a step versus a leap. And then when I had a big leap, I used other devices to help me figure out how big that leap was by relating the final note to a note that I already knew. And these are the things that we want to be able to do, because realistically, the stuff that you're eventually going to learn about singing intervals and learning that a major sixth is My Bonnie and a minor sixth is the theme from Love Story and a minor seventh is the Star Trek theme. Star Trek, I had to work that in there, right? Star Trek Picard, episode 5 or whatever it is, going to be on tonight. Looking forward to it. Oh, I saw a question, but that's actually just me. So never mind. Yeah, so making these associations between what you're hearing and where these notes are. I mean, if you're already good at it, great. And I would love people who are good at it to share any other insights you have. And I know I did see your comment, Susan, about if you like it, it's going to stick in your mind more. And yeah, there is that, right? If it's not a pleasant melody, it's going to be harder to remember. Now, what I will say, though, is, these things like these patterns, when I talked about that random number sequence versus a less random sequence, if it's not random in music, I don't mean it's going to have to be a scale to be memorable, but if the melody itself follows a pattern, it's going to likely be likable. So like that melody there, winter, da-dum, bum. I mean, check out that pattern. It's bum, 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 but interrupted by A. Bum, 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 boom, bum. So it's got this scale figure, bum, 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 and it has this jumping down to that A. Bum, There's actually a term for this type of thing, a term that I definitely use in the counterpoint course. So it's called a compound melody, where if you look at that melody, bum, boom, bum, boom, bum, it sounds like a lot of leaps. But if we think of it as when, 6, long, it's steps. And if we just think about the other notes, months, that separate melody of months is also a nice smooth melody. It's a common tone. So it's sort of like it's two melodies at once. One that's going when, 6, long, and another melody that's sort of interspersed with it going months. This idea of splitting up a melody into two little sections like that, an upper section that's moving mostly stepwise and a lower section that's also moving mostly stepwise. A lot of good melodies are constructed that way. So yeah, this is like one of these sort of random topics that, I mean, who's going to tell you that in a normal music theory course? I mean, someone is, I'm sure, done that, but you could learn all day long about the note names and not have someone tell you that it's an advanced composition technique. Well, no, it's not. It's something you can see right here in this simple little 4-line song. We can demonstrate this idea of an advanced composition technique. It's something, and Richard, I know nothing about your background. I don't know if you like, for all I know, you've got a doctorate in composition, and you might know that term already, compound melody, but it's something that comes naturally to many people, especially, if you happen to be someone who works well by ear. It's going to come naturally. If you don't work well by ear, you're going to have to be taught it. So I'm here to bridge the gap. I want us to hear it, and then I want us to know the name for it so we can do it again next time. Okay, so questions. I'm always about questions here. Here's what I want you to do, and I'm going to post another kind of assignment after this session, and I'm going to tell you what this is. We've got several other melodies here, and we spent all that time just on that one, but we've got lots of other ones here, right? So I'm going to play Graham's, and we're not going to go through all that, and I'm going to play Heiss's, and we're going to look at John's here. So here's Graham's. All right. So I'm glad that we didn't try to do that one from memory, because that one's quite a bit longer, right? It's moving faster. It's got a lot more notes. Beautiful melody, Graham. It's got that. As soon as you put this set of constraints on it, say we're going to use the white notes, we're going to extend from this A to that A, or this A to that A, right? We're going to extend between two A's, and we're going to kind of focus on the D in the middle. As soon as you put that constraint on things, you're going to produce a certain sound that is the sound of plain chant, especially when I tell you to not be too rhythmic with it, right? Don't make it all rhythmic, just be long notes and short notes. I've described plain chant, so you're going to create music that kind of sounds a little like plain chant. Is it like following every rule of how they would have done it exactly in the 14th century? Well, no, not necessarily, but it's going to have a lot of the same qualities, and you're going to learn some of the same things that they learned when they were doing this and have some of the same reactions to it. So I'm definitely curious, anyone who has completed this assignment here, what your own thoughts were doing this, like, how it felt doing this. If it felt like, oh yeah, I've done this sort of thing before, or wow, this felt like I learned this new thing doing it. I'm really curious from anyone who was doing this. So Graham, great job on that one. Now let's hear Heiss's. Heiss's is like a whole, the Lord's Prayer here. It's going to last a little longer.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Nice job, Heiss. Okay, so you might have seen that like kind of face I made on the word temptation, and it wasn't like, oh, I didn't like that. It was, oh, this is interesting, and you all tell me. I'm gonna play that section again, and you all tell me what note was the final syllable of temptation. I'm trying to find that spot.
But deliver from evil.
Whoops, I didn't go back far enough.
Into temptation.
Temptation. What note was that? Back it up a little further.
As we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation.
Shun. Want everyone to sing a D. D. Oops, my keyboard's off. D. Shun. Let's walk down to it. Tation. Tation. So that phrase ended on a B. So here's a question for you, a little thought experiment. See who's got a good answer for this. Why did I find that significant, interesting? What was interesting about ending on that E, on that B? Anything that anyone can tell me based on whatever experience you have about that? Not that the note B itself is interesting, but in this context. Can anyone give me any thoughts about that? I'm just a little curious about that. And then he ends with evil or amen, something like that, right? He has that enclosure there also at the end, but the lower to upper version. So yeah, I'm a little curious to know what people will say about that B, or if you have any thoughts at all. Maybe it didn't strike you as interesting or unique at all. But it does have a certain specific historical connotation, whatever, that's interesting to know about ending a phrase on that B. So I'm giving the chance to catch up, see if anyone says anything. Here's the thing that I'm going to tell you about that B. This idea that we've got all these white notes here and we can arrange them with any note as the final. D as the final is probably the single most popular one, followed by A during this period that we're talking about. The other ones that were popular would be G, and then sometimes C, sometimes E, sometimes F, right? These would be popular finals for phrases. B was the odd man out. B would almost never have been used as the final. I'm not saying that you couldn't end a single phrase on it, but it typically would not have that role. The reasons for that are interesting and complex. And we're going to start talking about, going forward. I'll put up another lesson talking about the whole idea of where accidentals get used and the situations so I'll spoiler alert right now. The first accidental to enter the musical lexicon was B flat. And it was specifically to avoid some of the problems that B created. There were some other reasons for B flat to show up. But the deal is, if you try to arrange these notes starting with B, bum, 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 and play those notes in that order, starting and ending on B, there's a name for that. If you know the names of these church modes, there's a name now that's put to it called Locrian. But that was not a scale that was used during this period of the kind of music that we're kind of emulating here. Not a sound that would have been used at all. That arrangement of notes, B to B, just not a thing. Just not a thing. It was like only later someone said, well, I guess we never put a name on the one starting on B, Locrian, I guess. So it was definitely a kind of late comer to the game, sort of introduced more for completeness. And so I'm not saying that phrases never end on B, but there is a real significance to that. And we're going to talk about this more because I am going to start now talking about accidentals. Not now, but in like the next lesson. So I want to kind of start wrapping things up here. And what I'm gonna post something, and as I said, I'm going to challenge you to transcribe each of these. I want you to write them out. I want you to listen to Graham's version, try to write it out. Listen to Gijs's version, try to write it out. John's got a version here that he just wrote the notes here. I want you to try to sing it, okay? I want you to sing this guy and try to sing it from his notation here, right? So the goal is, we're going to use our own music that we each share to learn from each other and sort of cement some of our understanding. So I want you to try to write these things out, and I'm going to post all this also, but I also want us to write it in all the clefs. I want us to write it in treble clef, I want us to write it in bass clef, and I want us to write it in alto clef or tenor clef, one of those C clefs. I'm going to recommend alto clef because that's the one that's actually useful. I mean, it's so rare that you need to worry about tenor clef. And by tenor clef, I'm talking about this doohickey in MuseScore. This guy right here is the tenor clef, right? So this clef is used seldom enough that you can kind of practically forget it exists, and then just, read a couple notes if you ever need to. But alto clef, if you're going to write for strings or read music for strings at all, viola uses alto clef. So I want you to know alto clef well enough, right? I don't know it well, but I know how to figure it out, how to kind of put my mind to a place where I can read alto clef when I need to. So I want you to write these melodies out in both your own melody and other people's melodies. And then if you haven't shared your own, please write your own, share it. And then let's do this. Let's write out each other's melodies. And again, just paper and pencil. We don't need MuseScore for this. I'm just demonstrating this way so you can see what I'm doing without me having to hold up a piece of paper. I want you to write these things out in these clefs. And then, go back and try to practice reading them. We'll do other reading exercises if you need reading exercises, but for most people, we're more used to reading music than we are to writing it. And we're certainly, especially if you're MuseScore users, more used to typing it into MuseScore than actually drawing stuff on a staff. And I want us to reconnect to that as well. So this idea of writing music in the different clefs, I want you to do that. I want to write these things out in the different clefs. Finally, at the top of the chat, you will see I also posted a link to this tool called the Braille Music Notator. This is an absolutely amazing tool. I would love as many people as possible to have a working familiarity with Braille music. It's kind of a passion of mine, the whole accessibility business, but I haven't really delved into Braille as much as, I have the technical aspects of screen readers and so forth. But Braille is how most blind musicians deal with, written material, whether it's music or text. And I want to show you what this thing is and then show you, how you can use this thing. I'm going to give you the briefest description of Braille music. You're gonna have this pattern of cells, the dots arranged in the grid. The top cells are going to tell you about the pitch of the note. The bottom cells are going to tell you about the duration of the note. So I'm going to click down here the C whole note, and now I'm going to click over here the C quarter note. And we now have two things on our screen. It's not very interesting right now because you're like, well, I can read that. That's not Braille. But internally, this is Braille. And if I now go to options here and turn off Translate Braille, now you can see the actual dot patterns. You can see the upper four dots form this little angle thing here. That's the pattern for C. And you can see it's the same in both cells. That the C portion is the top four dots. C, these are both C. How do you know that's C? Well, that's what you have to learn about in Braille. And I don't really know that, but I know the basic idea of what's going on here. I'd have to reteach myself the patterns of dots specifically. So the upper four dots are telling me it's a C. The lower dots are telling me the duration. 2 dots means it's a whole note. Only the dot on the right means it's a quarter note. If I now go in and enter, say, a D quarter note, you'll see the bottom 2 dots are the same, right? It's just that right dot filled in. By the way, the dark dots, that means it's actually raised on a piece of paper. The little tiny little dot means that's the empty space. It's not really going to be raised when you print it in Braille. So the bottom two dots here are indicating that this is a quarter note, but this pattern here, these two dots on the diagonal, is what's indicating that that's a D. And then you can come back to turn on Translate Braille and see the notes here. So the thing is, you can put music into Braille. Like I can put in my music right now. It was a D quarter notes. I'm just going to use quarter notes. D, A. Actually, I'm just going to go with Richards there. Bum, 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 bum. And then it was a long F, so I'll make that one a whole note. So this is D, A, D. No, D. There's not a D here. I lied. That's not there. D, A, E, A, F. Those are the notes for Braille. Now, they have a whole system of indicating what the octave is to know which A this is. Is this the A above or the A below? So really learning Braille, you'd have to learn the signs for changing octaves and so forth. But you can see they're right here on the keyboard. These are the signs that tell you about when to change octaves and or how to specify what octave a note is in. So, yeah, at various times, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about Braille. But what I would say is for those of you who already read treble clef and bass clef perfectly well and read alto clef as well as you feel you need to, if you're looking for a challenge, if you're looking for something to do, looking for some way to further your musical growth, learn a little music Braille. It'll be good for you. All right. So that's the show. So I'm going to, again, post some thoughts afterwards with, some more, the exercises, what I want you to actually be doing here. By all means, keep, if you haven't posted your own version of the project yet, do so. I want to get some more projects here, get some more people talking about it. Yeah, we'll be back with more next week. I'm going to not post a whole nother huge batch of lessons. We're still going to be talking about pitch next week. Still, pitch is our main topic because there's more to say about pitch. We've barely talked about accidentals at all, and other than the one lesson where I tell you what they are, but I've got stuff I want to tell you about where that B flat came from and some of the other accidentals and how we're going to use them and start introducing them into another project. So we're going to stay on the subject of pitch another week, and then we'll move on and spend, about the same amount of time talking about rhythm. So anyhow, hope you learned something today and hope I've inspired you to be creating some more music and trying to live in this world that we're living in where we only have these 7 diatonic pitches. Live in this world a little bit more before I start introducing accidentals more. So I will see you all next time.